The iron key hits Alara Jameson's palm cold enough to sting. $7. That is every cent she owns. That is also the price of an abandoned cottage nobody wants deep in the woods near Blackwood Creek, Pennsylvania, buried under decades of unpaid taxes and whatever the county clerk called a situation out there. The woman behind the counter said it with the tone people use for roadkill. Final paperwork stamped. Transaction complete. Everyone in that office laughs. Alara walks out into the February cold and does not look back. If you heard strange sounds beneath the floor at night, would you investigate? 3 nights before that moment, Alara is sleeping behind a gas station on Route 422 with cardboard pulled over her legs and truck exhaust burning the back of her throat. She is 20 years old. She has one backpack, a bruised wrist she keeps folding inside her sleeve, and the particular silence of someone who has stopped waiting to be rescued. The door of her stepfather's trailer had clicked shut behind her 4 days earlier, not slammed, clicked the way a man closes a door on something he has already decided does not exist. No shouting, no final speech, just a lock turning, just her name removed from the world. She finds the county listing by accident. A library computer, warm air, 2 men joking near the microfiche machine about a property nobody will touch. $7, one of them says. 7 actual dollars, and it's still just sitting there. Alara leans forward in her chair. The listing reads, Blackwood Creek Cottage. Condemned status. Delinquent taxes unpaid since 1989. Auction minimum $7. She reads it 3 times. Then she reads the footnote in smaller print. Last known occupant, 1978. 1 Evelyn Marrow. Status unknown. At the county office, the clerk slides the deed across with 2 fingers, the way you'd move something sticky off a counter. Girl, she says not unkindly, just flatly. That place is not a home. It is a grave waiting for a name. Alara signs the paper anyway. She unfolds her $7. She takes the iron key. She is almost at the door when the grip on her wrist stops her cold an old woman in a yellow cardigan, standing in line, eyes fixed forward like she is reading something written on the opposite wall. If you hear knocking beneath the floor, the woman says quietly, leave before dark. She releases Alara's wrist and stares straight ahead again, like she said nothing, like she said everything. Outside, the February sky presses down flat and white. Alara stands on the sidewalk with a rusted key in her fist, $7 gone, and the words of a stranger crawling up the back of her neck. She wraps her fingers tighter around the key, and she walks toward the bus stop anyway. The bus drops her at a gravel turnout and keeps going. No announcement. No other passengers. Just the hydraulic exhale of the doors, the crunch of her shoes hitting frozen ground, and the road disappearing around a tree line so thick it swallows sound. Alara checks the county map printout damp from her jacket pocket, creased into quarters, and starts walking. The logging road runs 40 minutes through dead forest, bare trees locked in ice, a creek she can hear but not yet see. The cold here is specific, not just cold, but the kind that comes off standing water, and old wood and ground that has not been disturbed in years. It reaches through her hoodie like it already knows her name. Then the creek appears on her left, running black between flat stones. Then the cottage. It sits back from the tree line like something that lost an argument with time and simply stopped fighting. The porch sags through the center hard enough that both end posts have lifted slightly off the ground. The chimney is missing its top third bricks, scattered across the roof like they gave up trying to hold formation. Vines have swallowed the porch railing completely, wrapping so tight around the posts that the wood beneath has split. Dead. Everything dead. But the front door is what stops at Lara's feet. Deep horizontal scratches run across the lower half of it, evenly spaced, the width of fingers, running from left to right and back and again the way a person drags their hand along something in desperation. Not an animal, not weather. A person made those marks. A man watches from the garage down the road, heavy set, gray beard, wiping his hands on a rag that will never come clean. Walter Hale. He does not wave. He calls out across the 30 yards between them, voice flat as the sky. Nobody stays there long. He goes back inside before she can answer. The front door swings open on a smell-cold iron, dust, and something beneath both, something wet and close, like soil that has been recently turned. Alara steps through. Furniture under gray sheets, a child's rocking horse near the hallway, one glass eye missing, the remaining one catching the thin winter light. Dishes still stacked in the kitchen cabinet as if someone expected to need them tomorrow. And the picture frames on the walls, 4 of them, different sizes, every single one empty, not cracked, not fallen, empty. Whatever faces belonged there were removed deliberately, leaving pale rectangles on the faded wallpaper like outlines at a crime scene. Whoever left this place did not drift away. Alara crouches beside the fireplace and almost misses it. Almost. The floorboard nearest the hearth is fractionally newer than every board around it. Different grain, different fade, different age. Not original. Replaced. Recently enough to still carry the smell of sawdust if she leans close enough. Someone changed that board on purpose. That night she sleeps on the floor in her coat, backpack under her head, the iron key in her closed fist. The cold is deep here. Structural, the kind that lives inside walls and has lived inside them for decades. At midnight, it begins. 3 knocks. Directly beneath her. Slow even, patient, the rhythm of something that has been waiting a very long time and is in no particular hurry. Then nothing. Then silence so complete it has physical weight. She does not sleep again. At first light, she pries the board up with the flat end of her key, hands not entirely steady, breath short in the cold air. Beneath it, wrapped in a folded square of cloth bone dry, untouched by moisture, protected against time with the care of something left for someone specific, is a small leather notebook. She brushes the cloth aside, embossed on the cover in gold letters gone to brown with age. Evelyn Marrow, 1978. Alara's fingers go still on the cover. Outside, the dead forest makes no sound. The handwriting is small and careful, the kind that says the writer believed her words were worth the trouble of getting them right. Alara sits cross-legged beside the cold fireplace, with the leather notebook open across her knees and reads. She learns that Evelyn Marrow had a daughter named Lily, who drew horses on the backs of receipts and left them folded under her mother's coffee cup every morning. She learns that Evelyn baked bread on Sundays and hummed while she worked tunes she could never fully remember, half melodies she stitched together from songs she had heard once and never shook. She learns that the winter out here started hard in October and the creek froze by November, and the tree line went dark by 4 in the afternoon and stayed dark. And she learns that Evelyn was afraid. Not in the way people are afraid of the dark, afraid in the specific, quiet, controlled way of someone who has been afraid for a long time and has learned to function inside it. The sounds start after 11. Evelyn writes, dated October 1977. Beneath the floor, slow, steady, like something that already knows I'm here and is not concerned about being heard. The ground remembers things, she writes later. I don't know what it remembers here. Alara reads that line twice. Then she sets the notebook against her knee and listens to the cottage around her, the creak of the walls in the morning wind, the faint tick of the heating pipe she hasn't yet figured out how to use, the kind of quiet that is not empty. She walks to Walter Hale's garage that afternoon. He rolls out from under a truck chassis when he hears her steps on the gravel and takes one look at her face and puts down his wrench. Something in his expression shifts. He leans back against the truck bumper and crosses his arms and looks at the floor for a moment before he speaks. Evelyn Marrow vanished in February 1978, Walter tells her. Police filed it as abandonment said she walked away from her husband and child in the middle of the worst winter in a decade with no coat and no note and no destination. Official story, closed case. Nobody pushed back hard enough to open it again. You believe that? Alara asks. Walter looks at the space beside her instead of at her. She hummed while she worked, he says. Could never remember the lyrics. Every song she hummed was slightly wrong, half the notes invented. He pauses. A woman like that does not walk into a frozen forest and disappear. She just doesn't. His voice drops. Some people disappear twice. First from the world, then from memory. That's what happened to Evelyn Marrow. He picks up a shop rag and turns away. Alara goes back to the cottage and reads deeper. Evelyn's husband had worked payroll for the Harlan Crew Mining Company, which owned land east of Blackwood Creek. A tunnel collapse had killed workers years before Evelyn's disappearance. The official report listed 12 dead. But Evelyn had seen the payroll records, had held them in her hands, and counted 19 names, 19 men who went underground, 12 who officially existed, 7 whose families received nothing. No death certificates, no settlements, no acknowledgement that these men had ever drawn a paycheck from anyone at all. Evelyn had been collecting evidence. She had a contact at a Philadelphia newspaper. She had been 3 weeks away from sending everything when she vanished. That evening, Alara takes a flashlight and drops into the crawl space beneath the cottage floor. The smell is immediate cold soil, damp iron, old rot pressed into the earth over decades. She sweeps the beam low and moves on hands and knees through the narrow dark. The flashlight catches the north wall last. She stops. The dirt there is different. Freshly worked, smoothed down too evenly, too deliberately, the kind of surface that takes specific effort to make look undisturbed when it is not. Shovel marks pressed flat by a careful hand. Someone has been under here. Recently. She backs out fast and stands in the kitchen breathing hard. Mud on both palms, heart working at a clip her body is not used to. She shoves the chair under the front door handle. She checks the window latches. She turns off the flashlight. At 11 o'clock exactly, footsteps move around the outside of the cottage. Slow, even. One full circle. Human weight, human pace, not an animal, not branches, not wind. A flashlight beam slides across her bedroom wall. Deliberate, lingering, gone. Then only the dark and the silence and the notebook on the floor beside her, open to Evelyn's last page, the final line staring up at her in small, careful handwriting. If anything happens to me, don't trust the land. What's beneath it tells the truth. Alara does not move until morning, and in the morning, she finds the boot prints, fresh, deep, circling the entire cottage and stopping perfectly, directly outside her bedroom window. Whoever was out there last night had not been passing through. They had been standing and watching. And they already know she found the notebook. The shovel is already in her hands before she finishes the thought. Alara Jameson drops back through the loose floorboard opening before the morning light has fully reached the cottage windows. No hesitation. No second conversation with herself about whether this is wise. The boot prints outside her bedroom window settled that conversation. Whatever is buried under this floor, someone else already knows it is here, and they are running out of patience waiting for her to leave. She is done leaving things alone. The crawl space is narrow and cold and smells like 50 years of wet earth pressed into timber. She works the shovel flat against the disturbed soil near the north wall, the same spot she found last night, the ground smoothed down too carefully, too deliberately, by hands that did not want anyone asking questions. The first 12 inches come up loose, too loose. This ground has been moved before, more than once, by more than one person over more than one decade. Then the shovel hits something solid, metal, hollow underneath. The sound travels up through the wooden handle into her palms, and she goes still for 3 full seconds before she starts clearing the edges. A lockbox, rusted along every seam, latched but not locked, as if whoever buried it understood that a lock only delays the right person by about 40 seconds. She wrenches the latch open with both hands, knuckles white, breath coming fast in the cold underground air. Inside, cash. Bundles of it, wrapped tight in oilcloth, old bills brittle at the edges but intact, newspaper clippings folded into quarters, mining payroll ledgers, columns of names, dates, wages with certain lines crossed out in red ink and initialed by someone whose handwriting is sharp and deliberate. Safety inspection certificates dated 3 years after the events they claim to certify. Letters. Dozens of letters, some typed, some handwritten, all of them addressed between men whose names appear on county courthouse records and state mining commission letterheads. Alara reads fast, hand shaking, dirt on her face. The tunnel collapse was not structural failure. An engineer employed by the Harlan Crew Mining Company filed an internal report 14 months before the accident, identifying the east support column as critically compromised. The report was reviewed, initialed, and filed in a cabinet that was later reported destroyed in a separate fire. The column failed on a Tuesday morning in March. 19 men were underground. 12 deaths were reported. 7 were not. 7 men with names, with families, with children and school photographs tucked inside the payroll ledger like someone wanted them remembered, were absorbed into the paperwork silence that powerful people purchase when they need the math to come out differently. The company paid a regulatory fine smaller than the cost of the repair they refused to make. Then Alara pulls out the last letter in the stack. It is addressed differently from all the others. Not to a name, not to a title, just to the girl who someday finds this house. Her hands go completely still. She opens it. The letter is 3 paragraphs in Evelyn Merrow's same small, careful handwriting. The first paragraph explains what the lockbox contains and why it matters. The second paragraph names the men who covered it up and the families who still do not know the truth about what happened to their fathers and brothers and sons. The third paragraph is the one that takes the air from her lungs. Evelyn writes that she was not the first woman to hold this evidence. Before her, a younger woman barely 21, newly pregnant, terrified, had stumbled onto the same records while working as a file clerk for the county. She had copied pages. She had run. She had handed everything she copied to Evelyn for safekeeping because she could not carry it and protect her unborn child at the same time. Evelyn writes the woman's name. It is Alara's mother's name, Deja Jameson, written in ink, written in 1977. Alara reads the name 4 times. The 5th time her vision blurs and she blinks hard and keeps reading. Evelyn writes, "Your mother did not abandon this. She trusted me to hold it until you were safe enough to use it. If you are reading this, you found the house. That means she was right about you." A truck engine growls outside. Alara does not move. She kills the flashlight. In the darkness beneath the floor, she listens engine cutting off, 2 doors opening, boots on frozen gravel. Silence. Then a knock on the front door. Slow. 3 times. Not like the knocking beneath the floor from 2 nights ago. Harder, more certain. The knock of men who already know someone is inside. She grips the lockbox against her chest and does not breathe. She goes out the back window with the lockbox tucked under one arm and hits the frozen ground running before the men on the front porch finish their second round of knocking. The tree line swallows her in 30 seconds. She runs parallel to Blackwood Creek, feet punching through thin ice at the bank edges, cold water filling one sneaker immediately. She does not stop. Behind her, through the trees, she hears the front door of the cottage open, hears it hit the interior wall the way it does when someone pushes it hard, and then voices, low and flat, the kind men use when they're not asking questions anymore. She runs until the voices are gone. Then she keeps running. The bus to Pittsburgh costs $4 of the emergency cash she finds folded inside the lockbox false bottom. A thin wooden panel she pries loose with her thumbnail somewhere around the second hour of the ride. Beneath it, 2 more envelopes and a hand-drawn map of the land east of Blackwood Creek with 7 locations marked in red ink, each one labeled with a man's name. 7 names, 7 red marks on a hand-drawn map. She stares at the map for the rest of the ride. Pittsburgh is gray and cold and enormous after weeks in the woods. Ilara follows the address. Evelyn's letter mentions a name, a neighborhood in Homestead, a woman described only as someone who would remember Deja Jameson's face. Miriam Celestine Bell answers the door on the second knock. She is 71 years old with silver locks pinned back and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead and the immediate, unhurried stillness of a woman who has lived long enough to recognize when something important is about to happen. She looks at Ilara's face in the doorway for 3 full seconds. Then she steps back and opens the door wider. "You have your mother's jaw," Miriam says. "Come inside. Come." They sit in Miriam's kitchen for 2 hours. Miriam had been a labor nurse at the county hospital in 1977 when a young woman named Deja Jameson came in alone, no insurance, 3 months pregnant, carrying a canvas bag she would not let out of her grip even during the intake exam. Miriam had seen scared people before. Deja Jameson was not panicked, she was measured, controlled, the specific kind of calm that people build around themselves when panic is not an option they can afford. She told Miriam enough, not everything, enough. She had found something at work, records that certain men very much needed to stay buried. She had made copies before anyone noticed she had seen them. She had already passed the originals to someone she trusted, but she was pregnant. She had no money and no car, and no one in Blackwater Ridge she could trust with her child's safety. She needed to move, and she needed to move before the people who were already asking questions about missing files started asking questions about her. Miriam helped her go. Now Miriam sets her coffee mug down on the kitchen table and looks at Ilara directly. "Your mother did not run away from you," Miriam says, each word placed carefully, like she has waited a long time to say them to the right person. "She ran trying to keep you alive. Every choice she made after that night was about buying you enough time to grow up somewhere safe. There is a difference between abandonment and sacrifice. Your mother knew that difference better than anyone I have ever met." Ilara presses her thumbnail into the center of her palm. Hard. She keeps her face level. She asks the questions she needs to ask. Miriam answers them all. On the bus back to Blackwood Creek, Ilara opens the second envelope from the lockbox's false bottom. It is her mother's handwriting, dated 8 weeks before Deja Jamison died. The letter is 2 pages. It explains things Ilara spent her whole childhood constructing wrong answers to. It says she always knew Ilara would eventually run out of places to go, that the people who were supposed to hold her would eventually let go, and that when that happened, the cottage would be there. Evelyn had promised to hold the evidence. Deja had promised to leave a map. The house had been waiting the entire time. The final line reads, "Some homes wait for us longer than people do." I waited every single day. I never stopped. Alara folds the letter. She puts it flat against her chest beneath her jacket, between her sternum and her shirt, and holds it there for the rest of the ride. She does not cry on the bus. She cries later back at the cottage, curled on the floor beside the fireplace, one hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking in the particular quiet way of someone releasing something they have been carrying since age 15. Not loud, not dramatic, just the slow, physical work of grief finally finding a room large enough to exist in. The iron key sits beside the fireplace, still cold, still there, still waiting for the next thing she will unlock with it. And the second envelope, the one she has not yet opened, still sits on the floor 6 inches from her knee. She looks at it a long time before she reaches for it. The second envelope is not from Evelyn. The return address, written in handwriting Alara does not recognize, in ink newer than anything else in that lockbox, is a P.O. box in Charleston, West Virginia. Postmarked 11 days ago. Someone mailed this letter to the cottage 11 days ago, before Alara ever signed the deed. Before she ever walked through that door. Before she found the lockbox or read the journal, or spent a night listening to footsteps circle the building in the dark. Someone knew she was coming before she did. She opens it with steady hands. 1 page, typed, no signature. The families of the 7 deserve the truth. So does yours. Everything in that box is real. There is one more thing buried not under the cottage, under the eastern tree line, 3rd red mark on the map. They moved it in 2019 because they thought no one was watching. Someone was. Take the map to Marcus Delridge at the Philadelphia Ledger. Tell him the number 1978. He will know what it means. After that, leave the county. Do not come back alone. No name, no contact, no explanation of who had watched, or for how long, or why they had chosen Alara's mother's daughter to finish what Evelyn Merrow started 46 years ago. She goes to the eastern tree line at dawn with the map and the shovel. 3rd red mark. A depression in the ground so subtle she would have walked past it without the map's coordinates to anchor her eye. She digs 8 inches down and finds a waterproof case modern, sealed with a rubber gasket, the kind that survives decades in cold soil without compromising the contents. Inside, a hard drive. A sealed evidence envelope bearing a 2019 date stamp from a private investigator's office in Pittsburgh, and photographs, 22 of them, printed on photo paper showing men she does not recognize meeting at a lake house property in West Virginia over multiple seasons across multiple years. The same 2 faces appear in every photograph. One face appears in a Pittsburgh newspaper clipping tucked beneath the photos a man who currently sits on the Pennsylvania State Mining Commission. The second face she does not need a clipping to identify. She has seen it on a plaque inside the Blackwater Ridge County office, hung on the wall above the desk, where she signed a $7 deed 11 days ago. Alara sits on the cold ground for 60 seconds. Then she seals the case, tucks it inside her jacket, and walks back through the tree line without looking back. Marcus Delridge at the Philadelphia Ledger answers on the second ring. When she says the number 1978, there is silence on his end for 4 full seconds. Then, "Where are you? Don't move." He drives to Blackwood Creek that afternoon. What follows takes 90 days. Delridge's 4-part investigation runs in the Ledger and gets picked up nationally within 48 hours of the first installment. State authorities open a formal inquiry into the Harlan Crew collapse records. A forensic team moves into the land east of Blackwood Creek. The 7 red marks on Evelyn Merrow's hand-drawn map are excavated one by one. Beneath each one, they find what the families of 7 men have been owed for 46 years. Evelyn Merrow's remains are recovered from a separate site unmarked, 30 meters from the cottage, covered in 1978, and quietly moved in 2019 by the same hands that mailed Ilara that unsigned letter. Her name is cleared. Her daughter Lily, now 63 and living in Atlanta, is notified by a state investigator on a Tuesday morning in early spring. The man on the mining commission resigns before the third installment of the Ledger series goes to print. The second man, the one on the county office plaque, is arrested on a Wednesday. The county holds a memorial in June. No snow, just soft rain and new grass and the smell of a creek running clear. The families of 7 men gather in a church hall where their fathers and brothers and grandfathers' names are spoken aloud by a state official, some of those names spoken publicly for the first time since 1977. An older woman touches Ilara's arm near the door afterward. She gives only her grandfather's name. Then she walks away. That matters more than every dollar in that oilcloth bundle. Ilara repairs the cottage through the summer. New porch boards, replastered walls, fresh paint white, the color of something starting over. She plants wildflowers along the south-facing wall because they require almost nothing and return every year regardless. She hangs 3 photographs inside, her mother, Evelyn Merrow's memorial portrait, and a picture someone took at the June gathering, a room full of people finally allowed to grieve out loud. The iron key stays beside the fireplace. In September, a girl appears at the end of the logging road. She is maybe 17. 1 backpack. No coat despite the cold. Eyes working extremely hard to appear like they need nothing from anyone. Eyes Ilara recognizes the way you recognize a version of yourself you survived. The girl stops at the porch steps and looks up. "Do you know somewhere I could stay?" Ilara looks at her for a long moment. Then she reaches for the iron key, and she opens the door, because some truths only get told when the right person refuses to leave. And some homes are not built from wood and plaster. They are built from every person who chose, when they had nothing left to lose, to stay anyway. Before you go, think about someone in your life who quietly prepared something for you before you ever understood what they were doing. Someone who loved you forward, even when the distance between you felt permanent. Who was that person? Drop their name in the comments or just the word "waiting" if this story reached something in you. Your words might be exactly what someone else scrolling past this right now needs to read today. If this story moved you, share it with one person who needs to hear it. And if you want more true stories about survival, hidden truth, and the kind of strength that shows up only after everything falls apart, subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications. There is another story coming that will stop you mid-scroll, and you do not want to be the person who missed it. We will see you there. You.